many X-Men team members can you name? And among those you recall, who do you think is the most powerful? Welcome back, Nerd Squad. I'm your host Amanda McKnight, and this is the top 10 most powerful X-Men members of all time. Also, if you haven't heard, we have a new nerdy channel, and it's the next biggest thing: Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Let's try and see how fast we can get it to 100,000 subs! Number 10. Cable. Cable might be suffering from the techno-organic virus, but even then he is so powerful that he can manage to actually stave it off and slow it down dramatically, continuing to live on as he travels through time without, succumbing fully to the techno-organic virus. Oh yeah, did I mention he can also travel through time and teleport, and that he's an immensely powerful telekinetic and telepath? Because he is all of that and more. Cable is also a master strategist and fighter, having years of experience throughout time doing battle. Cable joined the X-Men back in the 1999 Astonishing X-Men series, and aside from that has also been a major player when it comes to other important X-Men teams such as Exterminators and X-Force. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, please go and check out our newest channel and give it a sub, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Number 9. Magneto. Usually when people think of X-Men team members, they don't really think of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants leader and one of the most iconic X-Men villains ever, Magneto. But the reality is, Magneto isn't all bad all the time. And over the years, we've actually seen him redeemed quite a bit, becoming more than just a powerhouse of a villain, becoming also a powerhouse of an anti-hero, and in some cases, just a full-fledged hero. Magneto first joined up with the X-Men in the second Secret Wars crossover event, Secret Wars 2 from 1985, which followed the original Secret Wars event from 1984 and told the story of what happened afterwards when the Beyonder, instead of kidnapping superpowered individuals, decided to visit them on their home planet of Earth. Number 8. Kid Omega. I don't think many will debate Kid Omega being on this list. He might be gone for now in the comics, with his trope initially also being to constantly be killed during the early days of the current modern X-Men books, but don't let that fool you. Quentin Quire is still a psionic badass who deserves your respect. He is considered to be one of a limited few mutants who belong to the Omega level class, meaning that he has unlimited potential in terms of what he can accomplish. And while being super powerful psionically, he's also super brilliant as well, and can actually think faster and at a higher capacity than even other extremely powerful and skilled Omega level telepaths. Quentin joined up with Logan's X-Men and was shown to be a potential future Phoenix in Wolverine and the X-Men issue number 42. Number 7. Doop. Doop is one of the X-Men who is known for being pretty ridiculous, and as such a lot of people don't take Doop seriously, which also extended to Doop's power levels. However, I would argue that Doop is actually one of the most powerful X-Men ever, who is simply grossly underrated due to his nonsensical appearance and his nonsensical depiction in the comics. Doop has powers that allow him to influence the emotions of others, perform magic, resurrect, travel in the liminal space between comic book panels, shatter the fourth wall as he pleases, and so much more. Aside from strange abilities like being able to access an infinite storage dimension through his own body, he also is just extremely tough and physically strong as well. Dupe is also one of those characters who, when he needs to get things done, he kinda just can. There's a level of irrefutable plot armor with Dupe in a weird way. Number 6. Phoenix Force. The Phoenix Force is a weird one to think of as a member of the X-Men. More a cosmic entity than a physical flesh and blood person, the Phoenix Force does have a weirdly strong connection to the superhero community, initially being intrinsically tied to mutants and the X-Men, especially X-Men member Jean Grey. When you think about it, during the time when Jean is often known for being the Phoenix in the comics, this wasn't even really Jean on the team, but the Phoenix Force in Jean's place. While Jean was resting below in Jamaica Bay, Phoenix adopted her form and persona, joining the X-Men team in her place before turning into a villain of the team, becoming the Dark Phoenix, and seemingly, but of course not truly, perishing. If you consider this, Phoenix actually joined the X-Men team under the guise of Jean back in issue 101 of X-Men. Number 5. Vulcan. This is going to be a list that is just filled with Omega level mutants, isn't it? And Vulcan, of course, is no exception. While the youngest of Summers brothers, he is also often thought of as being the most powerful of them all as well. Vulcan is Gabriel Summers, the little brother that for most of their lives neither Scott nor Alex really knew existed. Vulcan joined the X-Men back when Professor X was putting together a rescue team to go into the, at the time, villainous mutant island of Krakoa and save his original X-Men team. Vulcan was part of the team team that first attempted this, taking the name originally of Kid Vulcan for himself during his time training with Moira McTaggart's mutant team. While Vulcan's mission with this newly formed X-Men group wouldn't exactly go to plan, he would still remain a former X-Men member who years later would return to get revenge on the X-Men team he had attempted to save, who he blamed for launching him and fellow X-mate Darwin into outer space. Number 4. Storm. Definitely someone who deserves your acknowledgement and respect, both as an X-Man and as a ruler, goddess, queen, and regent of planet Arakko. Storm is actually one of the few people who survived the decimation of planet Arakko's populace, which happened recently. She was at the Quiet Council at the time, of course, of Uranus' attack, but I don't think this was a writing ploy to avoid her being killed, because, you know, some people are probably like, well, if she was there she'd have to die and that would be really bad. If anything, I actually think this was actually a writing ploy to avoid Uranus getting maimed and possibly killed by Storm, because that's how confident I am in Storm's abilities and power. Storm is a master of all the elements and initially joined the X-Men in Giant Size X-Men issue number 1 in 1975. She wouldn't just be a valuable member to the team though, but would also go on to be a strong leader, taking over for Cyclops as team leader in the comics as early as 1980 in Uncanny X-Men issue number 139. After his mourning of the loss of his love and teammate Jean Grey. Number 3. Jean Grey. You know, this list is a doozy because usually someone like Jean Grey takes my top spot when it comes to most powerful folks around lists. She's definitely one of the most powerful telepaths out there, and especially if we're talking X-Men members, Jean is also an original X-Men member too. So what's even more wild is that rather than become, a relic of the past who is bested by the younger, shinier mutant creations in comics, kind of like what's happened to Angel, I feel like, Jean has rather become a staple when it comes to the powerhouses of the X-Men, and she's returned to the X-Men multiple times as well. Jean initially joined the school and team back in X-Men issue number 1, all the way back at the beginning of X-Men history. Number 2. Hope Summers. I mean, what can I say about Hope that you don't already know? Hope Summers is definitely one of the most powerful mutants around in the comics. Don't think many people will dispute that. And the X-Men were fortunate for a time to actually have her on their roster, and just to have her around and as an ally, because she's super useful and super powerful. Hope's powers allow her to take at peak mastery the powers of any mutant that is within her vicinity. She is only limited really by range when it comes to this in terms of her ability to adopt one's powers, and she can adopt multiple powers at once as well. She doesn't drain the powers of her target and is instantly able to master any ability she takes on. It is pretty wild. She's also literally mutant Jesus, being the baby everyone fought over in X-Men Second Coming. Hope isn't a Summers by birth, but was the adopted daughter of the son of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor, and adopted son of Jean Grey, Cable, aka Nathan Summers. Number 1. X-Man. Nate Grey just has to be one of the most powerful mutants out there, and likely the most powerful mutant to have ever existed in the comics. He is the perfect offspring, perfect genetically anyways, of Jean Grey and Scott Summers, hailing from the Age of Apocalypse reality where he was genetically engineered by his world Sinister. Nate would later grow up to be raised not by his genetic parents, but by AOA Forge, who is basically his adoptive father. Nate has fought on the side of his own reality's X-Men before, helping them out, but being capable of traveling to other dimensions and realities and manipulate time as well, Nate has also fought alongside the X-Men of Earth 616, even joining the team in 1999 in Astonishing X-Men issue number 1. Who are your favorite X-Men members? Which former X-Men member and which current X-Men member do you think is the most powerful? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. I will see you in the next video, but until then, you stay nerdy, YouTube.